Well, here we are. Sorry, I kind of cut Mink off there. He was trying to say, is there a way to see the comments? If you're on your computer, you can open up the actual live stream on YouTube and see the comments.
Got it.
There's actual. Just make sure you mute your YouTube, otherwise you'll get a bunch of feedback.
Yep. I got it.
And then you can see the comments. Perfect. So what's going on, everybody? We got Tiki. Looks like Tiki's in here. Matt the Sports Beard, Jason Hill, Jared from Renew Man, E-Rock, Joshua Ricks, Hobbs from Montreal, Steven, and Bushy Beard. So we'll see who all comes in here. There's like 3 live streams going on tonight, so we'll see how it all goes. But we got Mink from, I suppose, known from Live Bearded, probably the most, but an awesome creator, inspirational guy. So welcome on this Saturday night. Thanks for joining us, Mink. How you doing tonight, man?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I appreciate you guys inviting me to be on. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and definitely looking forward to just sharing. So thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Anytime. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so David, I know you've been talking to Mink a little bit, or you've had some conversations with him in the past. If you guys don't know Mink in the morning, he does some inspirational stuff in the morning. So where do you want to go with this, David?
So, there is one of the Mink in the mornings. There was a quote that I think is a brilliant way to start this one, and I don't want to screw it up, so I'm actually going to read it. Mink, I'm assuming, I'm willing to bet, I can't see your face right now because I'm reading this, but you're probably going to crack a smile as soon as I start this, because it's a pretty obvious one. Man is made or unmade by himself. In the armory of thought, he forges the weapons by which he destroys himself. He also fashions the tools with which he builds himself heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace. Does that sound
as a man thinketh, man?
Absolutely. And the reason I wanted to start at that spot in particular is because, Mink in the morning and really the motto of Live Bearded, the do better, all ties into like the stuff you say when you're on Mink in the morning, which is, we should be guys. We need to do certain things. We need to act certain ways to better ourselves, not because of that's the way society sees us, but because we need to be better. If there's an opportunity to be better, we should do that. And that's it's so great of a message, especially right now, kind of the way things are, the way the world is. So what led you to like the mantra, the do better mantra?
Yeah. It's a great question, man. And first off, for anybody who hasn't read the book As a Man Thinketh, it's like 90 pages. You can actually get a free PDF of it because it was published so long ago that it's out of copyright. And you can just go online, search, Google As a Man Thinketh. You can get it, download a PDF, or you can buy it on Amazon for $10. It's every man needs to read that book. As far as the do better mantra, I think it's just really, it wasn't something that I specifically was like, do better. That's what I want my thing to be. I think it just kind of naturally progressed over time because, one of my biggest mentors in life has been Tony Robbins. And I had the privilege to join he has something called Platinum Partnership, and it's his highest level coaching program. And I got started in business in 2011, and I started working online full time and started to make a relatively decent amount of money. And so I spent, I spent some of that money on my own education. I'm a college dropout, and I believe in education, but I believe in self-education. And so I just dedicated myself to learning and growing doing as much as I could. And I've just kind of I've always had that desire to learn, that desire to grow. It's insatiable. And while I was in Tony's Platinum Partnership, I got to spend a year with him, and we traveled all over the world together. I got to spend some time at different events at his house. And he has a philosophy, and it's called constant and never ending improvement. And he calls it CANI, C-A-N-I. And that was kind of the first time I'd heard an acronym or this idea of just constant, never ending improvement. And that I felt like that really resonated with me. And just that, every day we wake up, it's there's shit that's going on. Life is hard. We've got challenges and obstacles and adversities that we're facing. But at the end of the day, I believe it's our responsibility to, welcome that day, welcome that opportunity with open arms and just to do everything that we can to learn and grow from it and through it. And so I think as I've had more time on this earth, more experience in life, more successes, more failures, more relationships, more friends, I think just all the experience that I've had has kind of led me to that point where I just believe the primary source of life is to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's a universal law in nature. You can't go to the gym once and be fit for life. You can't pay someone to do your push-ups for you. It sucks. People don't like it, but the truth of the matter is you're either growing or you're dying. We're really never standing still. And so I think do better is just kind of the simplest culmination of experiences and mindsets. And, it actually, I think I can't really even take credit for the idea of do better. I mean, it's just, it's been out there. There's been people that have kind of talked about it and used it for a while. But Spencer and I, in 2016, we were on a Facebook Live and we were just kind of jamming on one of our very first Live at Fives. And we had just came out with the Do Better shirts because we saw someone wearing it, or Spencer had one or something. And we're like, damn, that's really cool. We should make those for Live Bearded. And someone was like, what's this Do Better shirt that you have? And I was like, I just Spence and I both believe that it's our responsibility as men to do better every day. And that means to learn from our mistakes. That means to grow through our failures and to just strive every day to be the best versions of ourselves, the best men that we can. And I said that, and after that words, I was like, damn, that was kind of good. I should say that shit again and again and again. And, now it's really become the kind of the core ethos of my life. And, one of the things I've learned is one of the most powerful things that we can do is give someone the language for something, or even just give ourselves the language for something, because we all are looking for ways to express ourselves, ways to inspire ourselves, ways to relate to other people. And I think that's one of the things that we've done really well with Live Bearded is we've tried to give the community language, words, specific action items or talking points that kind of help them define who they are, but then also allow them the language to communicate it to other people. And so I think that the more content creators, as we're talking about content and just what that means, I think, to build culture or to build community, to build a tribe, a lot of times you have to figure out a language to help kind of create and build that tribe. And if you think about, man, I'm going on 3 tangents here, but if you think about every sporting event, right, there is all the different sports. Let's take football for an example. There's a language for football. And if you know what a safety is, what a field goal is, there you have the language. And therefore, by understanding that language, now you're a part of a community or you're part of a tribe and you can interact and engage in that. And so, part of why we created Do Better has always been kind of just my personal philosophy, my mantra. But we started to find ways to language it and things that we could say so that other people who also believed that was their mantra, who also wanted to live by that creed or really identified with the idea of it, we wanted to language it in a way that they could really understand it very simply and then also start to adopt that so they can not only be a part of our community, but be able to express themselves in a more clear context.
Absolutely. I had a long drive today, about 8 hours. I had to drive down to Oklahoma and grab my daughter. And the day before we do a Titan series, I like to try and just sponge up all of the information I can about who we're going on with. And you said something, just reminded me of something you'd said in a video, which was, you're talking about other businesses. And I think people get the common misconception that everybody gets everything right the first time, and that if they don't get it right the first time, they're an epic failure. And you were telling, I just feel like that's the way the world is. That's the way people see it, But you were talking about, you were saying you were at a courthouse, and you'd been at this courthouse 10 years ago, and things kind of came full circle. And it's just, I believe that people give up on themselves way too fast these days. They try something one time, and if it doesn't work, that's it. I'm never doing that again. And yeah. I think that story about you in the courthouse, it proves that as a very untrue doctrine, if you will. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, man, because I think one of the things that I say at Live Bearded with my guys is the first time you do something is the worst time you do it. And again, like, super simple way to language something, super simple way to say something, but the first time you do it is the worst time you do it. And I don't care what that is, every time you do it, when you're taking on and adopting something new, you're going to fail. And the truth of the matter is, I think success and failure, they're two sides of the same coin. And you cannot have one without the other. And unfortunately, we live in a world where, you're right, everyone, we get onto social media and we scroll through the news feed, and all we do is see everyone's highlight reels. And I think as men, that's particularly difficult because, in the eyes of society, in a lot of ways, men are valued for what we can create, what we can provide, how we can take care of our family. And, when you scroll through social media and you see everyone's highlight reel, immediately you're like, damn, everyone's got a nicer house, a better car, a hotter girlfriend. They make more money. They drive, like, their life is better. Shit, mine sucks. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is instead of inspiring us to fail more often and to push ourselves to become uncomfortable, to really do whatever we can to try to level up, a lot of times it actually has the opposite effect, and we feel discouraged, and that discouragement leads to a lack of action. Speaking specifically to the courthouse story for everybody that's watching, actually at the beginning of this year, like January 2020, Spencer and I were going through the process of getting a loan to help us with Live Bearded. And without getting into it too much, 10 years prior to this, I had filed bankruptcy. I filed bankruptcy in January 2010. And as we are going through the process of getting the loan, one of the things that the bank asked me for was the bankruptcy documentation. So, 10 years ago, I didn't have the freaking thing. So I had to go down to the courthouse. And when I got the documents, I realized it was almost 10 years from the day that they had been filed. And as David said, it was this, I actually get goosebumps right now thinking about it, because I was at such a low point in my life, and I filed bankruptcy because I had tried to start a couple of businesses and I had failed miserably. And then I went and talked to an attorney, and I was a 24-year-old kid. And he was like, you know what, like, rather than trying to like fight your way out of a bag, just file bankruptcy and just start over. And at the time I didn't know any better. So I listened to that guidance, which, in hindsight, I wish I would not have done that. I wish I would have, faced the problem head on. But there was that moment of just like, holy fuck, 10 years in the future. And here I am applying for a loan. I'm running, I'm the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. And over the last, 10 years, I'd actually had an incredible, amount of success in business. And I've made millions of dollars in business. I've lost millions of dollars in business. I've been on that roller coaster of life, but ultimately it always comes full circle if you're willing to never give up, if you're willing to fail, and again, I really have come to believe that success and failure are two sides of the same coin, and you can flip that fucking thing all day long. And, you might get 3, 4, 5 successes in a row, but the next time you flip it, odds are you're going to fail. And, I love this metaphor. If we use a sports metaphor, in baseball, the very best hitters in the world, they hit the ball 3 out of every 12 times they step to the plate. If you hit the ball 3 out of 12 times, you usually go to the Hall of Fame. And everyone else is battling for that 1 to 2 times. The difference between someone who hits 4 out of 12 and 3 out of 12 is the difference of millions and millions and millions of dollars. And one of the most fundamental lessons I learned from Tony when I had the privilege of spending time with him is usually the difference between success and failure is just a millimeter. It's just one more step. It's one more inch. It's one more failure. And you get to that next point. And so I think so much of it comes down to just committing to yourself to never fucking give up. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. If you have the willingness to learn and grow, you can accomplish an incredible amount. Another thing that I love to say is, you can go in life as far as you're willing to grow. And I truly believe that. And if you can reframe, because most of us have this idea of failure as this giant insurmountable obstacle, or this, ultimate defeat. And if you can just train yourself to see failure as part of the process, and the faster you fail, the faster you're going to get to where you want to go and have success. It becomes a game, and then you can just dance with that game and you can play with it. And it sucks, it hurts, sometimes you lose money, sometimes you get your heart broken, sometimes you spend years of your life and it doesn't go anywhere. But at the end of the day, I really believe that it's less about what you create and more about who you become in the process of that creation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a lot. That right there. I feel like we could talk about what was just said the whole time. Tyson, I know you have something with that.
Yeah, I had like a couple of things that popped into my mind. And so like one of the things that kind of pops into my mind is like, when you look at the stock market and you look at a stock over a year and it has the chart and it kind of goes, and then it might dip and then it goes up. But the thing you really got to look at is, where was it at a year ago and where is it at today? And my hands are going backwards, but where is it at a year ago? Where is it at today? Just because it went up and then it spiked down and then went back up and spiked, it's still a success, right? It had multiple failures along the way, but a year later, it's more successful than it was before the prior year. But that kind of leads into the next point based on like what you were saying. At what point does never giving up and failure after failure after failure, say we're talking business, when does that lead into I'm just insane for continuing to fail over and over and over?
Yeah, no, it's a great question.
It seems like there's a fine line between insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result compared to not giving up.
Yeah, no, I want touching on the stock market thing for a minute. Is a beautiful analogy, because your vantage point changes everything, right? And if you look at the using the stock market as a metaphor, if you look at a week time frame versus a month time frame versus a year versus a 10-year time frame, right? The results that you see are going to be incredibly different. And a lot of times people underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 or 10 years, and they dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in 6 months or a year. And I've like had more experience in different things, I've really learned that the vantage point that we take, the perspective that we have, really it's incredibly important to understand at what time frame are you looking at, what perspective are you taking. In terms of when to give up and when to move on, I mean, I would say that's one of the most difficult decisions we're ever going to have to make. And I'll use the example of a relationship. You're in love, right? You've been trying to make it work with your wife or your girlfriend, for months or years, and you just can't seem to find that groove. It's just difficult, and that ultimately that decision of when to continue to keep trying to make it work or parting ways and changing a course of path. There's typically never 100% answer to that question. It's always, I think it's one of the most difficult decisions that we have to make. And I think that's related directly to whether it's business or sports or whatever it is. Ultimately, I think the way that I approach it is, doing the same things over and over again is the definition of insanity. And so I think failure is an incredible teacher, but you have to learn the lessons. There's you can repeat 20 years over and over and over 20 times, or you can repeat 1 year 20 times and live 20 years, or you can live 20 years, if that makes sense. And so I think there's no way to answer that question. It's so individual based on circumstances and situations, but I think you just have to be really honest with yourself, and you have to at the end of the day, I think progress equals happiness. And if we're progressing, if we're moving forward, I think that really, to me, I've really worked to try to define success and happiness in my life as just moving forward. And so I think changing the like, again, rechanging or reframing or re-identifying what the thing that you're trying to get to is, and are you focusing on, I have to accomplish the end goal, I have to get to a said destination, or are you actually learning and growing along the way? But only the individual viewer, the individual man, can decide when to give up, when to press forward, when to continue to keep moving on. And I think those junctions, those forks in the road, ultimately are defining moments in amongst themselves. But I don't think there's a way to know when it's right or when it's wrong to move on. I think it is. I'd rather move on too late than too early. Personally, I'd rather fail a few more times, go through a few more heartbreaks, double down and give it all I have one last time, because at the end of the day, there's always a lesson in that next attempt and in that next attempt. And I think too often we sell ourselves short. So, if you're feeling like giving up, the best advice I could give you is just go one more time, give it one more round. And then that becomes the process, and you focus on, okay, well, what can I learn this time that I didn't learn before? And ultimately, I mean, all of life is failure. And maybe that's a crazy, bold, ridiculous statement to make, but show me anybody who's done anything and they've all failed. Again, going back to the baseball analogy, way more than they've ever succeeded.
Well, that's even bowling too. Like, how many bowlers bowl a 300 game, but you said the definition of insanity. We should all know that, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, but it comes with the lessons too. So if I'm continuing to try to run a business that's failing and continuing to run it the same way without changing anything, yeah, that would be definition of insanity. I'm doing the exact same thing over and over and expecting the business to somehow make money. But maybe you failed this week and you lost money this week, but what are you going to do to try to change the next thing that you're doing? Or like you said, with relationships, maybe you're at the wit's end with it. And it's like, I'm going to give it one more go, but I got to put my 100% in. I got to change things around, because if I just come home from work, kick my feet up on the couch and do the same thing I always do every night, it's going to get the same result out of it. So
yeah, I mean, another way to say that is, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
Absolutely.
And candidly, if you're gonna do what you've always done, if you're in that scenario where you've failed over and over and you've doubled down and you've lost money and you continue to lose money in your business, or the relationship continues to spiral out of control, and all you're committed to doing is doing the same shit you've always done, then you're fucked, and you might as well just give up and move on and do something different. But if you can look at yourself in the mirror and identify your faults, recognize where you've went wrong, look at the things that you've just not done in a way that you would like it to be done, and then you make the commitment to do it better, that's the process of everything in life, right? It's pausing, acknowledging where you're at, acknowledging where you want to go, and then doing something different to get there. But if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got.
So I have, I'm like I said, I like to dig into stuff. I mean, with you guys, especially with you and Spence and the company and Live Bearded being like the first company I ever put in my beard, and just led me into other things. But you've been around the world a little bit, seen some places maybe people haven't. I told Spence, I've seen pictures of you guys with like tigers and random things. So when you think about Western thinking, the way we think here, we talked about this a little bit with Spence when he was on with us. The world comes in, they flip a light switch, you have light. They turn on a water spigot and they have hot water. So when you were over in Thailand, I guess it'd probably be a good example. What was the difference of thinking? Like, I feel like the Western world feels really entitled, and that that hurts the way we see things. We become
Yeah.
unappreciative, ungrateful. And when you go to those other places, I think it gives you such a better quality of the way you should be appreciative of things. So if there was one solid lesson that you learned when you were traveling over there, what would it be?
I think it just comes down to perspective. And it's a good question, man. And perspective is such a big term, but just in the context of where we're talking right now off the cuff, I think of in like the US, for example, we have you said you flip on a light and the light automatically comes on. You turn on a faucet, water comes out. I'll share this story with you. I was boarding a plane maybe like before COVID happened, but I was standing in line to board a plane, and I was literally the next person that was going to get on the plane. And they stopped me. They're like, hold on a second. They came over to the intercom. They're like, we made a mistake. We have to take everybody off the plane, and then we got to change something around in the plane, and then we got to let everybody get back on. And this woman behind me was like, oh my God, like, how could this happen? And she's like losing her mind. She's pissed. And this goes on for like probably like a solid 5 or 10 minutes. And she's just kind of like, she's not really talking to anybody. She's just kind of like pissed and just like mumbling and saying like, oh God, like this is why I never fly with American. And she was just like super upset. And the guy, they came over the intercom and they're like, hey, it's probably going to be about a 20 to 30 minute delay. We're really sorry. Just, bear with us. And I made eye contact with her and she's like, this is ridiculous, isn't it? And I was like, well, the way that I look at it is in about 30 minutes, I'm going to sit in a flying chair. And I think that's a miracle. Like, that's pretty fucking awesome. And she just was like, and she just like put her head down, pulled out her phone, and she didn't say another word. And I think how this relates back to your question is when you go to other places, I have had the privilege to travel a lot. I've been to 35 countries. I spent 7 years of my life just traveling. The only reason why I wanted to start my own company was because I had this desire to travel and this desire to experience life. And that was probably my biggest driving force in life as a younger man. And that's why I wanted to start my own business. And that's why I went through those failures. And that's why I just kept trying and learning and growing and improving. And then ultimately I started to make money online in 2011. And then I started to make good money online, and I sold everything I had and I started traveling. And what I loved about every place that I've been, whether it's, in the jungles in Costa Rica, whether it's in the, the slums of India, I've been to India, whether it's living in Thailand, I lived in Thailand for 9 months. What I loved is just the perspective that it gave me, because we're all trying to meet the same needs, but we're all going about that in such a different way. And whether, it's the culture that you live in, the food that you eat, the religion that you embody, like all of these different experiences that we have, I think they give us perspective. And if we use that perspective, I think it allows us to pull our head out of our ass at times, to stop getting caught in that trap of entitlement, or that things should just come easy. I think perspective is it, man. That's the biggest thing that I've gotten as I've traveled around the world. And ultimately, I think for me, anytime things get bad or anytime I'm going through a tough experience, I have this, and we all have this perspective that we can draw from, this experience that we have. And ultimately, I think if we utilize that, we find we can, kind of pull ourselves out of the moment and really learn and grow from it.
Yeah, I remember a very specific conversation that you and I had, and that's what it all came down to, was perspective. It's so easy, myself included, it's so easy to look at things, a specific situation one way, and say, I almost get into like the woe is me category, like, oh, the world hates me and it sucks and whatever, when really it's just an opportunity to better yourself and maybe show somebody else in the process how they can help themselves out. I mean, if the people in the chat don't know, when you're being kind of a fanboy like I am with you and Spence, especially, like when I'm in a conversation with you guys and I'm looking at you rifling down the list, like, well, these guys run a successful business. They motivate other people. Like, to see you reach back out into the community it's epic. So I should have started with that, but thanks. But the point was perspective. If people can just change perspective, just a tick, that's all it took when you and I were talking. And I think that's what I said. Like, yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it the wrong way. I just wish more people could do that, But so let's talk about Live Bearded, because I don't know that anybody's ever heard of it. Kind of a new company, not very big, just coming up off the ground. But so you and Spence met in college, or were college friends, or?
Yeah, so I grew up in Oregon. In 2006, I just got tired of the rain in the West Coast, and I wanted to move to warmer, something warmer. And I found myself in Arizona. Met Spencer at an LA Fitness playing basketball, and I was new in town, and he was going to ASU. I wasn't in school at that time, and we just became fast friends, and we played ball together. And I think he invited me over to a house party. And, he was a freshman in college, and he had like 5 roommates packed into this house. And I show up, and there's like 100, college kids hanging out, drinking and partying. And, we just became good friends, and we had a lot of the same values, and we were both in sports, and, love to just, hang out. And we all had big goals and big dreams. And, you just meet someone, and you meet those people, and you just click with them. And so we've been close ever since.
We have some questions in the chat. When did you grow your first beard?
I guess it depends on how you define a beard, because I had like the stubble beard for a while. Like 2013, 2014, I had a beard that was maybe like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. So I know some guys are like, man, that's not a beard until you get to your year. Other guys are like, it's a beard the moment you stop shaving. But for a few years, I had, I guess, a stubble beard, probably like 4 or 5 years before we started Live Bearded. And candidly, I was like, I didn't think I could grow a beard. And I was like, I can't, it's super thin. I can't grow it long. And when Spence and I started Live Bearded, I told him, I'm like, dude, he could grow obviously a great beard, and he had the stash and the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, you're going to be the spokesperson. You're going to like create the content. You're going to build and kind of be the face and the voice of the brand. And then I'll just be behind the scenes, and I'll just like do all the marketing and the sales and the business stuff. But then as it took off, I felt like I needed to like really try to grow out my beard to be within integrity of the brand. And then it started to grow, and I started to experiment with different lengths and sizes. And I guess the rest is history.
And what's your favorite sports team?
Man, the 1990 Chicago Bulls.
Okay. So you have it down to year too.
I mean, like the 90s Chicago Bulls, like just the Jordan era. I was a diehard sports fan growing up. I actually I played college basketball when I was in college. Basketball is definitely my first love, and it's really where I learned all of the value of hard work. Getting on the court and practicing and doing drills, and kind of experiencing success for the first time through that hard work in basketball. But as I've gotten older, and as I've become, more successful in business and just been in the game of business longer, I'd say maybe the last 5 or 6 years, I just haven't watched any sports at all. Personally, I view business as a game. I think business is the greatest game there is, and if you think about it, nothing happens in the world that we live in until something is sold. We're having this conversation right now because all of us have bought shit or paid for something or paid to have service to something that is allowing us to have this conversation. And so everything around us in the modern day world is taking place because someone sold something to someone, and someone created something to be sold. And I really see capitalism in its truest form as an opportunity for people to take problems and try to find solutions to problems to increase the quality of our lives. And so I love this game that we play in business. I love what we do with Live Bearded, and we've got some other stuff that we're working on. But sports, I love sports because of the metaphor that they create for life. And I think there's so many lessons that you can learn from sports that you can apply to your life. I know all of the first, like I said, all of the first experiences I had in life, it really came down through sports. And so, but I don't pay too much attention to it these days. I think basketball's changed a lot. Football's changed a lot. So I don't have a favorite team right now.
I think a lot of it is sports have changed so much, but you're right. I mean, there's no sports even without business, because they got to have the stuff to play, right? They got to have the equipment. They got to have, like, that's big business. Even they sign those contracts, for sports teams, and like whoever does the footballs and the basketballs for the official ones for those leagues, like, somebody's got to put them out. Like, that's big business. David, what were you saying?
I just want everybody to know I'm still here. My camera just freaked out and overheated on me, so I'm just letting it cool down for a couple minutes. That's all.
Got to take it off that 4K. That 4K is some hot stuff.
I didn't even think about it before we went on. Anyway, but so Live Bearded, right? Everyone knows you guys are successful. Everybody knows you guys. One of the cool things about you guys is like the guarantee that I've never had a complaint, but I've seen a video made. Something didn't work for me. They gave me my money back. So, I mean, all of those things are just amazing. But I want to talk about what's next. I mean, I have seen, and I don't know if anybody else follows you on Facebook or IG or on the mailing list, but I got this picture that is blacked out. And I know we've discussed it in the green room. We're not going to talk about what it may be. But you guys obviously have big things coming, right? Like, it hasn't ended. It's constantly evolving, like you said. So, what do you guys, without giving any secrets away, I know we discussed that, but you guys still have big things coming. Like, where you've reached is not the end of the game, right?
Well, yeah, and it goes back to the do better principle as really kind of the common theme that I've woven through every aspect of my life. Spencer's woven through his life, and therefore by default we've woven through Live Bearded. One of the things that's interesting is a company usually tends to take on the values and the ideals of its owners, good or bad. If you have an owner or a creator, whether it's content, whether it's a company like Live Bearded, the way that we view the world, our worldview, our mindset, our perspective, all of those things, our values, those typically become emboldened and embodied in the brands and the companies that we build. And so that's one of the things I'm very proud of with Live Bearded is, the representation of what Spencer and I have been able to build and create. But we have a do better philosophy that, starts with us as individuals and really fuels through Live Bearded. And so we're always looking at ways that we can improve what we've done. You guys have obviously continuously seen that. We have new fragrances that are coming out. Obviously we're doing the seasonal stuff. We're releasing a new fragrance specifically on Black Friday. So I'm really excited to see that. We spent a lot of time deliberating on what fragrance that should be, and what makes sense. And, anytime, I feel like the business cycle is so long to develop a product, to create something. Anybody who's been in business or has tried to develop something, it just takes a long time. And so a lot of times it's a hurry up and wait process. But, I can tell you guys, we've got a new fragrance coming Black Friday. We've got a new product that we're launching in January, a new category of products that we're launching in February, a new category of products that we're launching in March. We've got, so to like share with your viewers, we've got deodorants that are coming. We've got bar soaps that are coming. We've got potentially colognes that are coming. Like, we're just always working on stuff. We're doing a lot of revamping our apparel and our merchandise line and trying to find ways that we can improve that. But the reason why we do any of that and why any company is doing any of that is because, again, back to that idea of, if you're not growing, if you're not evolving, you're dying, you're moving backwards. And so we're constantly trying to find new ways to add value. I think, and if you could sum up, I said, I think the greatest game in life is business. And if you could sum up business in a simple sentence, I think all business is a conversation around a shared experience. You guys started your podcast, the Titan series, and that's your business. And what you're doing is you're having a literal conversation around a shared experience. And we're specifically talking about creating content. Live Bearded is specializing in and focusing in on the conversation around having a beard. And our goal as business owners, as content creators, is to find ways to add value, to create meaning, to create impact through that conversation that we're having on a day-to-day basis. And whether that's with a widget like a shirt, a beard oil, whether that's with a podcast interview, a book, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility as owners and as creators to find ways to add value. And if you add a lot of value, then the way that you measure the value that you're creating is by how much people like your stuff or by how much people buy your stuff. And that usability or viewability metric determines how much value you're adding. So it's really fun to be able to understand that feedback, input, output equation, and then to continue to try new things. And if the feedback is great, continue to keep going in that direction. But I hope that answers your question.
Let's talk, we talked a little bit about failures earlier. Let's talk successes, because I think, as you mentioned, success and failure goes together a lot. And so when we talk about not doing the same or doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is considered insanity, right? Well, a lot of people talk about that on the aspect of failure. And when you fail, why would you do the same thing over and over and expect to not fail? Well, it's the same thing with success, right? And you can look at that, in my opinion, with Live Bearded. And you guys, in my mind, I mean, I don't know your numbers, but we're most likely doing really good, really successful. But like you said, you're always looking to up your game. And if a successful person who continues to see success and success and success is just going to continue to ride out that success, there's going to become a point where that success ends and it just becomes stagnant, right? Because if you're not going forward, you're standing still. And so with you guys changed your labels. You reinvented the butter that you guys had. So you were continually, even though seeing success, making changes, because if you continue to do the same thing over and over, you might see that success, but eventually it's going to start dwindling down because it's the same thing. People want something new and innovative. So that's kind of what I was thinking about when you were talking about that, is not only does insanity come along with failures, but insanity comes along with successes too, which can turn to failures if you keep doing the same thing over and over and aren't trying to improve the game a little bit. But one of the big questions I had for you is, I think at some point in life, whether you in high school, middle school, adulthood, business, people run across just bullies. People run across people that don't like you. There's people we don't like. I mean, not everybody's going to get along, right? You're always going to have something. So, like, what's your advice? I'm sure, coming from a bigger company, you have other bigger companies out there that are competition. You have other bigger companies out there that you probably work well with, and you have smaller companies. Like, what's your advice to people when they get put down or they're being bullied or people don't have nice things to say about them? Like, how do you guys block that out or put that aside and just continue doing what you're doing? How do you not let it influence you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think you can let it influence you, but you have to let it influence you in a positive way. First and foremost, one of the things I have said in the past is dogs don't bark at parked cars. And you can use that metaphor to say that if you're doing something, if you're moving, if you're trying to create anything in life, there's people that are going to bark at you. And ultimately, we live in a world where, as sad as it is, it's easier to burn the building down than it is to build it. It's easier to tear someone down than it is to build yourself up. And man, now more than ever, we live in this victimhood culture, which I just can't fucking stand, where people, rather than finding ways to improve themselves, again, they look for ways to tear other people down. And I think the first key is just having thick skin and a soft heart. I think that as men, we're called to be leaders. And part of being a leader is knowing that you're going to take some arrows, and knowing that if you do anything worthwhile, you're going to have critics. And so I think the most important way to not let it affect you in a negative way is to know that it's going to happen, to know that it's coming, to know that if you have big goals, big dreams, shit you want to create, people are going to have some negative things to say. There's going to be dogs that are barking at you. And the sad truth is sometimes it's those that are closest to you that have the loudest bark. And, there's this interesting paradox, because so often you'll have an idea for a business, or you'll want to create something or do something, and you'll tell your wife or your brother or your father or your mother, and they're just like, don't do that. That's a bad idea. It's terrible. It'll never work. And people are so beat up because those that love them the most are sometimes the most discouraging. And it fucks with your brain. But what people need to understand is the only reason why they say you can't do it is because they don't believe they can do it themselves. And what people do is they project their limitations, their fears, their insecurities on other people. We all view things through our own biases. And so anybody out there who is trying to accomplish something, anybody out there who struggles with negative feedback, with fear of failure, with worrying what other people think and say, the best advice I can give you is, number one, if you're going to do anything worthwhile in life, you're going to get a lot of negative feedback. You have to just prepare for it. You have to get ready for it. Sometimes I think it's valuable to listen to it, because you can learn from it, because it can be a source of inspiration. You can listen to it and not believe it. So there's a time to listen to it, and there's a time to block it out and say, fuck that. I'm moving forward. I'm going in this direction, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. So it could be a very useful tool, the negativity, the feedback, the barking, if you will. But you have to anticipate it first and foremost. You have to know that it's coming. And then you have to know that your conviction is greater than anybody else's doubt.
That's the stuff right there. Well said, man.
There's the next t-shirt. Your conviction is greater than anybody else's doubt.
I always like rocking the shirt that's got like the actions is greater than words. I love that shirt, man. But Tyson, so do you have any more Live Bearded stuff you want to ask, or can I go on a rant?
You can go on a rant.
Oh, let's go on a rant then. So not a rant, that's the wrong word to use.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just like, I don't know what are we getting into here.
Damn, here we go. All right, just give it to me, man. Hey, come on. What do you got to rant about?
Did you see the trepidation in his face? He was just like, here we go. But no, so I know we've talked about, people, doubters in your life specifically. I mean, I could use mine as an example too. I think the whole time growing up, I always heard exactly what you said, what I couldn't do. Right? Mm-hmm. What I couldn't do. And the funny thing about that, it's not really funny looking back at it, but it's absolutely true, is I decided to buy into that, right? I decided to, you know what, you're right. I absolutely can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. I let other people determine what, like Zig Ziglar always says, it's your attitude that determines your altitude. Your attitude, not your aptitude, that determines your altitude. And I lived through that whole thing, man. So I just want people, we have a couple of people watching it now, people that'll watch this later, like everything, the culmination of what we talked about tonight is, people are going to talk shit. People are going to run their mouth.
Now more than ever.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's true. Like I see so many people buying into that. I've done it recently. Like, you know what? This guy's right. I just can't. But it comes to that point where it's like, am I going to man up, do what I need to do, and not bitch about everything? Or am I going to buy into the Kool-Aid? Am I going to drink the Kool-Aid And that's not a direct shot, because I know people are going to say that, but I'm not. Am I going to drink the Kool-Aid and just give up? And just giving up is not in my character anymore. But it just sucks. Yeah, the world the way it is right now, man, is crazy confusing. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. But
yeah,
there's a lot of positives too. Like, people are always talking about what's going bad, what this and that. That whole lockdown we had a while back, I got to make content. I got to build my studio. I got to chit chat, do whatever, and there is something in the chat that I wanted to bring up, because I know you've never heard this before. When's Maui coming back?
So one of the things that I'll say on your rant is, like, again, there's two sides to every coin, right? And so you can see the lockdown as, using your example, you can see the lockdown as this terrible thing that's fucking up your life, or you can see it as this thing that is going to give you a bunch of time to do the things that you haven't done. And what I will tell you is, I think the single most important skill set, and I use the word skill set very intentionally, the most important skill set that any one of us can have is the skill set of mastering the meaning that we give to things. The meaning that we assign to things in our life is going to 100% determine our life. And someone says that your business idea is terrible, your podcast idea is terrible, no one's ever going to buy that shit from you. Like, you can decide that guy, what that means, and you can decide to believe it, you can decide not to believe it. But at the end of the day, the meaning that we assign to things will ultimately determine the action that we take, and the action that we take will determine the outcome. And so I think we are living through crazy times. We've got COVID, we've got social justice, we've got politics, we've got more division, more just more craziness than I think anyone in modern history has had the opportunity to experience. And we're getting pulled in so many different directions, and we all have to define what it means for us. And I think a lot of that knee-jerk reaction is to give it a meaning that's tough, maybe a meaning that doesn't serve us. And so if we can know that, one simple example that I use a lot, and this is just a dorky example, but if we're walking down the street, right? If I'm walking down the street and I pass a beautiful woman and I look at her and I smile and I say, "Good morning," and she just doesn't even acknowledge me and she keeps walking right by. And that, like, take a moment, all the listeners, you're watching, just think of that experience for a minute. You're walking down the road. It's a beautiful morning. You're in good spirits. You see this beautiful girl walking towards you. You look at her, you smile, you say good morning, and she doesn't even acknowledge that you're there. She just walks right by you. How does that make you feel? What meaning do you give that? So I would recommend, I would suggest that there's one of two meanings that you might give it. The first meaning is, if you are a confident man, if you maybe are a little bit arrogant, if you have some self-confidence, you might pass her by and think, like, damn, what a bitch. Like, she didn't even say hello. Like, what's wrong with her? If you're super self-conscious, if you're not very confident, you might walk by that experience and you might think, oh my God, like, is there something on my face? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, damn, I really am a piece of shit. Like, she didn't even acknowledge me. I am worthless, right? Like, but at the end of the day, what the truth is we have no idea what's going on in her world. We have no perspective of what she just experienced. And whether it's the person that just cut you off on the road, whether it's a colleague that lashed out at you, whatever the experience is, the meaning that we attach to it is more important than the response that we've got from someone else. The meaning is what determines the actual experience that we have. And so, as it relates to Maui, a lot of people have been really pissed at us because we haven't brought it back. And the truth of the matter is, it may come back, it may not. But at the end of the day, you just have to be patient. And, maybe sometime in the summer it will come back.
I think
would be happy about that.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that is so forgotten nowadays. Maybe the number one thing that is forgotten or that's done is and I say we because I'm just as guilty as anybody else. We take things personal and we think about ourselves. We don't necessarily think about what is that person going through. What maybe they had a family member that just passed away and they're having a super rough morning, but the first thing we think is, they didn't say hi to me, so we don't necessarily think about what the other person might be going through. But, speaking of, I'm going to just say a little statement here, and this is just my thoughts and opinions. And then if Mink can respond, or I just want to hear your thoughts on it, I guess. But I've always been, I work in the coaching industry with team members, and I've always told my team that just because the calendar rolls over to a new month, it doesn't change anything. If we're executing poorly in October and it rolls over to November 1st, we're not going to all of a sudden execute better. The calendar doesn't mean anything. And so, we see a lot of, 2020 dumpster fire, 2020 is horrible, and all this, but it's not going to change January 1st of 2021. Like it's just not. Like nothing's going to change. We're going to wake up on January 1st and we're going to live in the same world that we live in today. And so the way that I think about that is to continue to find ways with what we have to make things better. And, right now, my daughter got COVID and she's on a 14-day lockdown. We went and we all have COVID basically and are, being in here. But the good side of that is, yeah, thanks. But the good side of that is we get to spend time not having, it takes the pressure off of man, I really need to get some work done, or I really need to do this because I can't anyway. I'm not allowed. Yeah. So it's it opens up the freedom to spend time setting up the Christmas tree and actually enjoying the family side of things and doing things. And it took the whole Thanksgiving pressure off of whose house we're going to go to Thanksgiving, because we're not going to go to anybody's now because we don't have to worry about that. But, just because the calendar rolls over to 2021, it's not going to make this world all of a sudden better. So we got to figure, it's up to us. And our whole town is going through this crazy thing right now where half they did a city council meeting and half of them want a mask mandate and half don't. And the mayor had to come in and say well, I'm going to vote for a mask mandate. And then there was all kinds of repercussions because everybody's don't treat us like a baby. We're free adults. And I don't want to get all political, but if we think 2020 is a dumpster fire and we want 2021 to be different, what are we willing to do? What are we going to do to make it different? Because the only way that this pandemic stops is it starts with us. We have to protect. We have to listen to the guidelines. We have to, wear our masks and try to stop this thing, And so, that's just my mindset is the calendar rolling over doesn't change anything. We have to change our behaviors. We have to change what we're doing if we want to see results. And it might be mid 2021 before we're fully back to normal, or end of 2021. We don't know how long it's going to take, but the more effort that we put into fixing it, the quicker it's going to happen, right?
Yeah, man. I think you're spot on with the idea that nothing changes on January 1st. No, nothing changes when the president when a new president comes in, when the year clicks over, when we, get a new job, when we make a certain amount of money. We, as humans, we tend to project this idea that when something in the future that we want to happen or that we think is going to be better for us happens, then everything will be different. And the simple truth is you're going to wake up on that day and you're going to put your pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else. You're going to have the same doubts, the same fears, the same insecurities, the same challenges. And that's why, two things. One, I have this fundamental belief in my life, and it is my life is my fault. And if I don't like anything in my life, it's my fault. And if I just approach life with a complete ownership of my experience, then I don't have anybody to blame but myself. That's number one. And also, that's a very scary and bold and hard thing to do, because if you're not loving your life, if you're broke, if your relationship sucks, if you are fucking miserable because of COVID or because of the president or because of whatever, if you're miserable because of outside circumstances, then I'm gonna tell you right now, you're always gonna be fucking miserable, because something outside of you is always going to be in conflict with the way that you want it to be. Life isn't the way that you want it to be, it's the way that it is. And arguably, we have zero fucking influence over what happens outside of us, and the controlling factors that guide a lot of the experiences that we have. And I've just got to a point in my life where my life is my fucking fault. It's my responsibility. And the meanings that I attach to everything are going to determine my reality. So if I think that on January 1st, everything is going to be different, and that's the meaning that I've given it, and I wake up on January 1st and everything's the fucking same, then I'm in a world of hurt. And now I have more anxiety, more frustration, more anger, versus just taking control of the experience and looking for an empowering meaning in the obstacle, in the adversity, right? Because if we all looked for something good that has happened this year, we could find it. If we all looked for an empowering meaning, we could find one, and then we can choose to focus on that, no matter how small it is. We could choose to focus on that one element of 2020, and we could find some level of gratitude and some level of appreciation for it, versus all the shit that's happened. And even if the shit is real, and there's been a lot of shit this year, right? You can still find something. And so I think as I'm talking, I'm reminded of what I think every leader, if you want to be a leader, you have to do three things. The first thing you have to do is see the situation as it is, but not worse than it is. Yeah, COVID sucks. Yeah, like it's been difficult. Business is shut down. Yeah, like there's these crazy social justice issues. Yeah, like there's a lot of people that don't like the president, and there's a lot of people that do like the president. Like whatever it is, my relationship sucks. I'm fat. I'm overweight. My business is bad. I'm in a lot of debt. Whatever the situation is, you have to see it as it is, but not worse than it is. Because you can never build from a position of lack. You can never build from a position of failure. And if you're compounding all of the dumpster fire bullshit that's happened, the fire is just going to continue to keep raging, because anything that you try to do, if it gets so big, it's next to impossible to put it out. So you have to see it as it is, but not worse than it is. And then you have to see it better than it is. You have to find those things that you can appreciate, those things that brought beauty to your life, those opportunities that didn't exist before. Because we all have been given different opportunities because of COVID, because of 2020, because of the things that have happened. If you can find those, then you can focus on those. And then that gives you that foundation to build from, that you can then start to make a positive change moving forward. And the last thing you have to do is just create a plan to move forward and to create a better future than your current reality, if that makes sense. But if you think that the future is going to be better than the past, you're just fucking lying to yourself, because if you're always focusing on how bad things are, that's a habit, that's a behavior, and that's a skill. And you have to change the way that you think, and you have to find something that you can use that's going to be positive to build from, empowering to build from.
Yeah, and like a couple of things, resonate with me is like if we're thinking that the world's all of a sudden going to change for the better January 1st, 2020, we've already given up on the last month and a half of 2020. Like you're giving up on the positive things that can come out. You're already planning for the rest of November and December to suck because you think it's going to change January 1st. And, you were talking about, the outside elements, what you can control. And that's something that I preach to Aubrey all the time when she gets upset because we were planning to do something and it rains. Like, you have to control the things that are in your power to control. If you're planning to have a birthday party outside and it rains, and now you cannot have that birthday party. You can't control the weather, so there's no need letting it ruin your day. You take your birthday party on the inside, and you have a good old time because that's what you can control. And there's so many different aspects of that, and every point of life is like, I don't necessarily like this situation, but what can I control with this situation? I can't control what the weather is outside, so what can I control to change my attitude with what I'm upset about with it being rainy outside or whatever it is? In our world is beards and YouTube and content and things like that. And it's like, if you don't like where you're at or what you're doing, what can you do to change it? And leave it at that, and don't get upset about everything else. It's uncontrollable. It's out of your control. So control what you can control and let everything else be. And that's kind of, where, my mindset with 2020 has been, what can I control? Well, I definitely can control how much time I'm spending with my kid. I've definitely been able to dig deeper into technology world and try to expand my knowledge in the things that I can do from home to bring in a second income or anything else. And with every pandemic or things like that, there's positive things. And I wish, so many more people could think about the positive things. And with every business that's failed in 2020, which, that sucks. That sucks that the pandemic caused that. There's been a lot of businesses that have opened in 2020 because of the pandemic, including people that make face masks and cleaning companies and janitorial companies. There's been a lot of jobs because now a lot of businesses need people greeting at the door to take temperatures. There's things that are coming out of it that we're not really looking at because we're looking at all the negative. And a lot of it's the media's fault because that's what the media likes to rave about is all the negativity. But for me, I'm a naturally kind of depressive type person. So I really try to find the positive in things with everything that I do and everything that I'm letting into my head, because we're super persuaded by what we put into our mind, I feel like. And so if we're listening to a bunch of guys sit around and talk crap, we're most likely going to start believing and thinking that same way because that's what we're putting into us. But if we sit and we look at the positive things and we continue to flow those things into our mind and our body, that's naturally going to be our belief system on it. And so I think one 2020 positive, the pandemic may keep the Friends TV reunion event from happening. Hey, a lot of people want to see that Friends reunion. A lot of people want to see that, but I just don't want people to go into 2021 thinking like, we have to get to 2021 because it's going to be so much better, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you're giving up on 2020. There's some of the most important parts of the year are left, and it's all new experiences going on, from Black Friday shopping to holiday shopping. Everybody's changing the way that they do business right now. And those that sit back and see how they're doing business, I can almost promise you people will not do Black Friday shopping again next year because they're going to see success in doing it for a week this year online or vice versa. And there's going to be new things that come out of this holiday shopping and the way that people do businesses going forward. So it's just crazy to get hung up on all the negatives when there's so many positives as well.
Yeah. I think part of what is negative gets defined as just doing it different. We think that we get so ingrained in doing things the way that we've done them that when those things change, again, it becomes a negative because it's different or not what we're comfortable with. Man, as you're talking, I was reminded of a couple of different things. And in 2015, and so in 2014, I sold one of my companies. And then in 2015, I sold another one of my companies that I had at that time. And I had a bunch of cash and I was feeling pretty good about myself. And I had more money than I thought I would ever be able to have. And I decided to start a new company. And I made a lot of mistakes and I burnt a lot of cash. And I found myself basically broke at the end of 2015, kind of going into 2016, right before we started Live Bearded. And I had this very difficult experience because I went from my identity being like, oh, I'm this young, successful guy. I just sold a couple companies. I got, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank and I've done all these things. And then in a very short time, in a matter of 9 months, I was basically broke. and I just completely like made the worst decisions possible. And I had this, I had a really difficult time like trying to figure out how to cope with that. And that was a very pivotal and transitional part in my life. And I really turned to books and turned to reading and turned to mentors to try to figure out like how I could learn from that experience so that it never happened again. And kind of through some of these failures, I created different principles that I live my life by. And there's 3 of them that are kind of my guiding principles in everything that I do. And I didn't make these up. I borrowed them from other people that are very smart and much smarter than me. But, the first one is life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. And I think, and Tony Robbins said that. And I learned that from him when I had the opportunity to travel with him and spend time with him. And if we think that life is happening to us, then it sucks when shit like this happens. And it seems like we're always the victim of circumstance. But when we see life is happening for us, then that by definition means there's something in it that's going to benefit us. There's something in it that has a gift. And so if you find yourself feeling like you can't wait for something to end, for something new to happen, for a better relationship, for a new year, for a new president, whatever it is, I would encourage you to look at this situation as happening for you, not to you, because there's something to learn. There's something that you need to experience. There's growth that can take place. And so whenever I'm facing a really insurmountable obstacle, I say, this is happening for me. Where's the empowering meaning? What's the lesson? How do I use this to grow? That's number 1. Number 2 is circumstance doesn't create our character. It reveals it. And this is a quote from an improvised quote from As a Man Thinketh. The actual quote is, circumstance doesn't make the man, it reveals him to himself. And what I think that means is when we're facing difficult times, the way that we react is who we truly are. And when, and I just using some of the examples of this year, when things have happened that people don't like, and the gut response is to destroy things, to lash out, to abuse, that circumstance is revealing who you are. And for me, I always want to see how I'm reacting to stimulus, to circumstance, because I know that's showing me where I can grow, where I can learn, where I can improve. And then the third one is, don't wish life was easier. Wish you were better. And then just go fucking become better. Go make yourself better. Go learn, grow, get around better people, develop a better group of friends, whatever it is. I think if you could see life as not happening to you, but happening for you, if you can use circumstance to grow and to see who you really are, and you can not wish it was easier, but just focus on getting better, I really think for me, I've been able to use those principles to get myself out of any situation, to get myself and keep myself on the right side of just on the right side of what I'm trying to create, the right side of behavior. But to your point, I mean, we're going to wake up on January 1st, 2021, or we're going to wake up on January 21st, 2021, which is the inauguration, the day after the inauguration of the new president. And you're going to have the same challenges, the same life. Nothing is going to be dramatically different. The date's going to be a little bit different. Who's sitting in an office is going to be a little bit different potentially. Maybe not. I don't know. But ultimately, the way that you relate to the world is going to determine your life. Maybe the best way that I could say this is the quality of your life is the quality of the emotions that you live in. Our emotions determine our life.
I think that's a perfect statement and a perfect way to end it, because we've been going on for an hour and 15 minutes and we appreciate all your time. I feel like at the end of that would have been like, you know what? Just go out there and do better. If you don't like the way you're at right now, just do better. And it's such a mindset game, I feel like. And, you know, a lot of what we talked about was mindset around you. If we think the world sucks right now, that's what we're going to believe. And it's the emotions that we're going to have. And that's how we're going to feel about it. So we have to change our mindset and the way that we think about things. And if we worry more about what we can do and improving ourselves, our outlook on our own life is going to improve as well. So thanks for joining us, Mink. I really appreciate it. Any closing comments?
No, just you guys keep doing what you're doing. I mean, I love the fact that you're in the middle of creating something, and that process is difficult. It's tough. It's for anyone out there who's a content creator or wants to start something. You know, I think maybe the best thing that I could say to end it is this: like, life is supposed to be fucking hard. You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to get your ass kicked, and you're supposed to lose it all. Because through those trials, through those challenges, you uncover who you are, you learn what your gifts are, and you learn how to contribute in the world, and you grow in the process. And so much of, you're talking about mindset, right? So much of the experience we have of life is the lens that we see it through. And if you just know that life is going to be hard, I'm going to get knocked down, I'm going to pick myself back up, I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, I'm going to fail, I'm going to keep flipping that coin, and I'm just going to do a little bit better every single day, whatever that means for me. To me, that's a successful life. Success is doing what you know you should do. And if what you know you should do is just learning a little bit, growing a little bit, improving a little bit, saying I love you one more time, life doesn't have to be this really daunting, heavy, crazy thing. It is at times, but ultimately just keeping it simple and focusing on the things that we can control and understanding that we're going to make mistakes, we're going to fall down. You know, one of the things I've been telling myself a lot is because we're all very hard on ourselves, right? As men, we're our own worst enemy, our biggest critic at times. Although sometimes I'm not a married man. Sometimes your wife might be able to challenge that statement. We're all a work in progress. And when I do dumb shit, when I fuck up, I just look at it, as cliche as it might be, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, you're a work in progress. Just keep moving forward.
Learn from the decisions you make. We have a lot of requests in the comments for bringing back Mink in the morning and having that going good, and for you to write a book. And so tons of people are thanking you for the inspiration tonight, and love listening to you talk, as do I. I love conversations like this. They get me fired up, and I think it's beneficial for everybody to be able to sit and have these conversations. And it really does change your mindset, because it gets you thinking positive, it gets you thinking real, and it's so much better than sitting around with a bunch of guys bashing on something or talking crap about something, because you walk away from the conversation feeling the way that the conversation went. And this was a really, really good conversation. So I thank you for your time and for your positive influence in all of our lives, not only tonight, but every time you post and we see something from you and from Spence and Live Bearded. It's always been extremely positive and influential. So I speak for probably everybody in the chat when I say thank you for that. And David, any final closing comments for you?
No, I mean, I got a text message asking why I was so quiet in the stream, and it's rarely do I have an opportunity to sit down in this arena and just soak stuff in. So I hope other people that were in the chat and other people that'll listen later got as much as I got out of it. We knew coming into the content creation stuff, it was going to be some epic stuff, and this one might have set the bar, in my opinion. So I appreciate it, Mink, man. You're I talk once in a while, and you've always been very helpful and very honest. And at us setting Live Bearded aside, you're just a hell of a dude, man. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And keep doing what you're doing. I mean, this is powerful stuff, and it's a grind and it's a journey, but I'm glad that I could come here and share a little bit. And it's an honor for sure.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your weekend. We're looking forward to the Black Friday stuff. And thanks everybody for joining. Remember, Live Bearded says do better. Faithfully Bearded, we say humans helping humans. Be you.